Does anyone have a question? I'll undo your cameras so I can see you, or I'll ask you to. Does anyone, while I'm doing this, does anyone have a question for Doreen? Or?
Yep.
Hi, Doreen. My name is Diane.
Okay.
Thank you for this morning. First time meeting you online. And what a charm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I totally get what you're talking about, feeling and receiving, feeling the patients.
Yeah.
More than with their hands. Now, in these times of COVID, where we have to be behind a camera, we cannot feel with our hands. I miss that so much.
Oh, I miss it so much too.
I'm trying to feel the patients through the camera, but you know, that has limitations. So what advice would you have for us to go get this feeling?
I think it's a whole different skill set because people are different learners, right? There's auditory people, there's visual people, and there's kinesthetic people. And usually one is dominant. I'm a kinesthetic and a visual, not auditory, not much, okay? So for people that are kinesthetic, it's more of a challenge to be doing telerehab. Now, and it's a whole other learning skill, which, to be honest, I haven't developed. I know Diane Lee has developed, you know, some teaching of her stuff, which I find is not necessarily easy with all those ring shifts. She's doing it online. It's like, oh, my hat's off to her, you know. But I've not done telerehab with patients. I've talked to them on the phone, given them exercises, that kind of thing. For which I didn't really feel comfortable charging them because you know, my work is, I would say, perhaps 2/3 hands-on and 1/3 hands-off, being exercise advice and that kind of thing. Because I think it's important for patients to also be involved in the process. It's not just me. I hate that word, healing you. You know, I don't think we heal anybody. I think we just facilitate, and it's up to, you know, we do the best we can with the tools we have. So with this telerehab, getting back to that, I think you have to develop really good visual skills and get creative in how you want to be able to see what you know you're trying to assess. But to be honest, I don't know if I can guide you along that way because I haven't played with it enough at all. So I think it's like once you have it in your hands, you can translate it, you know, into another medium perhaps, but you have to learn it in your hands at first, you know, before you do that, I think.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, thank you.
I wish I had better answers. It's a whole different world out there. Yes. There's someone else here. Paul. Somebody lifting their hand.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Okay. So you had, I think, I had been thinking, you know, how to be clean or connected all day, and you had said somebody had taught you how to stay grounded. So can you talk about staying grounded? Because I certainly have an issue with that.
Yeah. So, you know, that there's, oh gosh, Michelle, maybe you can help me with this.
Because I do meditate, but I mean, I know some techniques are better than others.
Right. When I meditate, different forms of meditation. When I meditate, I primarily do what I call a chakra meditation. So learning about the chakras and the different energies and what they mean, and trying to open up those chakras. Carolyn Mice is a medical intuitive, and she's online and lots of books. And she's recently I listened to about an hour and a half webinar on the chakras, and I thought I knew pretty much everything about it. And no, I learned a lot more. And so the more you understand what these energy centers are and what they represent in your life, the easier it is to connect to them. But I must say the hardest one for me to connect to was that root chakra. Exactly. And because it has to do with with where you are in your tribe, your family. And, you know, we all chose to come into the family that we came into because we have certain life lessons. That's the way I feel anyhow. And sometimes, you know, you learn most from those that are challenging you. And so what I try and do when I'm trying to root myself, shall we say, is imagine like a red energy running through both down your legs, through the soles of your feet, and then spreading out like many, many roots to be able to ground to not just the earth, but right through to the center, core of the earth. That's really, really deep. And it's like in multiple rootlets, multiply it. So that it's not just the stem with, you know, one small root. It's really very wide, and so when you get to that feeling, you just feel like, okay, I'm here and I'm here to stay, and I'm, you know, it's a grounded feeling. I don't know how else to describe it.
Can I help you, Doreen?
Yes, absolutely.
Can I help you? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Michelle Jourdain. I'm a personal coach, so I'm certified in NLP and also in a technique called focusing, which is, I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but it's international, and it's about listening to the felt sense of the body. The way I would say that to you right now, without using any chakra language and just everyday language, is in order to ground at any time during the day, you can just stand in one spot, or you can sit on a chair and start by feeling your body and the weight of your body in the space you are. So you're in a room and you get a sense of, okay, this is my body. I'm on this chair. The chair is solid. And slowly you breathe into this and start with your feet and feel them on the ground. And then you can visualize the fact that the ground is the ground of a house or a building, and this building is sitting on the land, and the land is on the earth, and it brings you down slowly to something very solid. And as you scan your body and come up your legs and just let go of everything on the chair and trust that the universe, the floor, the chair, and then you go on to the floor, the chair, the room, the ground, and the universe is actually supporting you, and come up your spine and breathe through it and release your jaw and let go of your arms. You're going to find that you become very present, because you can't do that without bringing yourself into this particular moment, this present moment. And that will ground you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
You know, Michelle, I've known for a long time. It's kind of ironic that behind you there's a poster of trees and forests.
They ground me.
Be able to language this stuff to people who don't know much about energy or chakras or spirit. She has this gift of being able to language that, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can't hear you. Oh, okay.
Anybody else want to put out a thought or have a question? I'm sort of looking around the screen. Hello, Miriam.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
My question would concern more the chronicity of, you know, when people show chronic issues.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any cues or any keys? Keys?
My goodness. I think as much as possible as a therapist, I try and bring it down to what is the functional issue, as opposed to focusing on pain. Okay. So assess first of all, when you do a subjective assessment, you should have a pretty good idea just after your subjective assessment what it is that you're going to evaluate, because it won't be the same for everybody, right? And I know one of the grandfathers of manual therapy, Jeffrey Maitland from Australia, he said, if you really listen to the patient, not only will they tell you what the problem is, but how to treat it. And I remember going to a conference in 1992, an international conference of manual therapy called IFOM, and he was talking about the subjective exam, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is an international conference. This is very basic stuff. Like, what is he going to teach us? And that's all I remember from that conference was this one slide of him treating somebody's back, doing some PAs with the leg bent and the patient up in extension. And nobody had ever seen that before. And his message was that this is what the patient told me. He, from his subjective inquiry, that is what led him to this technique. And today we know that that is a technique to mobilize the interface for the femoral nerve. But there was no explanation for that at that time. Mm-hmm. So subjective. And then objectively, what you're going to evaluate, it could be the joint mobility, it could be the stabilization of the joint, it could be a muscle tone, muscle tension, it could be nerve, it could be, but what I'm trying to say is you can't stay just only in the area of pain. You have to look at the whole body in relation to a functional task. And that's where the international, integrated systems model is really helpful. So that way you end up treating the source of the problem and not just the compensatory pattern. So when you have patients who come back over and over again with the same issues, there's a couple of reasons. One is, you haven't done enough education for the patient, because oftentimes it's like they, I get back pain when I brush my teeth. Well, you have to teach them to stay neutral. What does that mean? To bend through their hips, all that education part, which is really important so they don't keep re-injuring themselves. And B, sometimes if the patient is or client is listening to your conseil and they're still getting into trouble, you have to say, okay, they're doing everything that I suggested and they're still having issues, so maybe that's not the primary problem. And bring it back down to function. And what happens when you go into that half squat? Is the foot collapsing? And why is it? Then you assess the foot more specifically. But you try and correct the foot and see if that affects the area of pain. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the whole, you have to keep in mind that, there is pain education that needs to be done at times. And that whole, whatever tools you want to use, explain pain, Laura Mamolzi's stuff, and trying to get the patient to not focus so much on his pain and bring it back down to function all the time as much as possible. I don't know if that helps. But,
Doreen, what was the name you used? The term integrated business model? Or integrated?
Yeah, integrated systems model. Yeah.
Okay, I'll post that too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Learn with Diane Lee is her website. Yeah.
Anyone else? Teresa, I'll just unmute you. Unmute. Ta-da.
Hi, Doreen. Hi, I'm just wondering how you orient someone towards like a nutritional sort of solution to their chronic pain and inflammation. How do you bring them there?
Well, I think somebody mentioned that we have to know our limits, right? So you have to be aware of all the factors that can influence whatever your patient's going through. And a lot of times what I find with patients that have nutritional component to their problem is that it's their body is an inflammatory soup. They're constantly in inflammation. And so what is it about their lifestyle that is contributing to that? Are they exercising, moving enough? What's their diet like? And so this whole alkaline diet thing. And so I can give my own interpretations of that, but that's not my area of expertise. But I do have contacts. I have a naturopath whose basically interest is in nutrition, and so I refer out and I say I strongly suggest that you look at that, because there's something going on in your body. You get these bouts of inflammation all over the place for no reason. It's not mechanical, and there's something feeding that. So I refer out essentially. Yeah, mostly.
If they want to go.
If they want to go, and even when they do go, sometimes they don't like to hear the message because it requires quite a change. But having gone through bouts of cleansing myself, the first couple of days are really hard to stay out of, carbs and wine and chocolate. Oh my God. But after you get over it, it's like, oh my gosh, your body starts to feel different and good and strong. I couldn't believe how I could do certain things in yoga. And I've been doing yoga for, I don't know, 20 years. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, and just from a change in diet. And so we have to keep that in mind, that it's not always about what we can do as a physio or a therapist of any kind.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, same here.
I agree with that. Sometimes I feel like it's outside my jurisdiction or the scope of my practice, but I see people's energy and I can tell that there's like a big blobby blob in something, and I don't know how to address that with them. It's like, oh, you got a big blobby blob in your chakras, so there's a little fear thing that comes up, like I don't know how to do this, or I'm not good enough. This is my own bullshit that I've brought with me, but I can see it, and I know that you know this. Sorry to put you on the spot, but what do you do with that? Because sometimes I can't just say this is not a physical thing anymore. I know, and it's not a knowledge, it's a knowing. This is not a physical pain. You're carrying this around like armor. Yeah.
What do I do with it? Well, again, sometimes I refer out because I know that it's beyond my scope. And there are other times when it happens sometimes when I'm on somebody's, whatever body or tissue, that I'm getting some messages from, I guess, their guides telling me what I should tell the patient. And it doesn't, I don't ask for it. It just happens. And I just kind of like, okay, well, here goes. Are you open to this? I'm getting this message. And for me, it means nothing. And the patient will look and go, oh my God, yes. This means a lot to me. And I'm like, okay, do what you like with it, but I'm just here as a conduit, if you like. So that's happened occasionally. Again, we have to know our limits. And I do know that there's one course in the Brow Institute, not the Brow Institute, the Upledger Institute, Kerry Ambrosio, he's teaching a course on how to deal with these, energy cysts, somato-emotional release, there's all that kind of stuff, whose main aim is to be able to deal with the emotional component of the pain. And, Christiane Northrup, she writes about how the emotions are basically stored in our fascia. So oftentimes when I'm treating somebody, all of a sudden, sometimes it happens that they cry, and I'm like, okay, am I hurting you? No, I don't know why I'm crying. It just brings up something. And then you're trying to say, so my role is to kind of say, well, what does that bring up for you? What are you feeling? And maybe you need to explore that further with a health professional, because I'm not the psychologist, and I know my limits, and sometimes traditional psychotherapy, it depends on some of the approaches. Some people are very good, and others kind of keep you in your story forever and don't give you any tools to manage. And this is why I like to refer out to people who do NLP or focusing. And I've had really good results when I refer out for those kind of approaches when I recognize that there is an emotional component to their physical problem.
Not exactly a fair question, but it was like the sort of thing that just wondering if you say, if you address that with them. I don't want to insult them, I think, is my big fear.
No, but
this is physical.
Yeah, but if I'll say things like, have you noticed that your pain comes on when there's an issue with your son or whatever? And yeah, you're right. I'm going, well, okay, so there's that, mind, body, soul thing. You've got to pay attention to something, and your body's telling you to pay attention to that other thing through pain, but if you pay attention, that might be a way to be able to work through that.
Thanks for that. It helps. I mean, it's rare, but it's always there, and it sort of brings up my own issues.
Oh yeah, for sure.
NLP?
Neurolinguistic programming. It's what Michel Jourdain was talking about, NLP and focusing. And it's and actually she's the person I tend to refer to most. So she's done amazing things with some of my clients, let me tell you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? I just noticed that the Allison that's at the bottom of the screen is she's like my coach, and she speaks the light language. So if you want to get strong, you can do that with
the
her.
light language, yes, that's what it is, isn't it? Yeah,
We've had some really awesome chats, and she's been really understanding when I've had good days and bad days with the confinement thing, and I always worry if it's biochemical. And just talking with somebody, anybody, it helps. But then talking with somebody like you, Doreen, or with Allison, it's nice to sort of have that, real solid power connection. So, and she works at, you work lots of places, right, Allison? But at the Kettlebell Club. So if ever you want to get, buff.
Super strong.
Anyway, I want to make that little connection, not about getting strong, but there's like 16 of us here, but only like 9 of us on the screen. I'm just going to put that out there to everybody. Unmute all. Does anybody have a question before we wind this down? Alice? Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to ask.
Sorry, I'm just going to let. Just 1 second. Allison, you had a question?
I was just going to say, this has just been an incredible conversation. Amazing. And it's so like, I'm like, oh, I feel relief because I'm building the intuitive voice. Like, it's just been, I've had Hashimoto since I was 12. And I'm like, my whole trajectory, it's all throat chakra, baby. It's all self-expression, but we've been so head heavy. I'm like blocking. Now allowing that flow, but like, to your credit, Paul, what you were just saying, when you start to trust the intuition, it's scary, but it's so comforting to know, like, all I have is my own experience as backup. Like, I know what I know because I'm feeling it, I'm experiencing it. And it's like, oh, thank goodness. And just trusting in that. And then it's almost like then you become anchored because you're believing your own experience. That's just all you sort of need to know. I'm like, okay, I just soak in that truth. But it's amazing to hear you chatting. It was such a great conversation, and thank you so much.
It never steers you wrong. It never steers you wrong. And I find if I don't listen, that's when I get into trouble.
Yeah.
It is. And with the kettlebells, kettlebell work is crazy because it's a powerful, you become the machine. It opens up this crazy deep warrior strength within us. And then the fascia, like, I just literally did, I was telling somebody, I'm like a magician, hand over hand, pulling a scarf out of my throat. I was like, my shame sits in my fascia. I was like, not mine anymore. Like, pulled it out. Nice. I was like, am I allowed to talk about this? And I am. It's so exciting. So thank you so much.
You don't want these kind of emotions sitting in your tissues. Get them out of there. Yeah.
The body's like, oh, she's ready. She can handle pulling it out now. And the emotions want to go. They're like, don't make me I'm not the culprit. Let me out. Have a beautiful day.
Cool. So anybody else have questions before we can end this? I mean, the floor is open, and otherwise I'll just say thank you, Doreen. Oh, Sarah, can you unmute? Okay.
I'd like to get your feedback. That was fantastic, by the way. Thank you so much. I've been a massage therapist for the past 10 years, and in the past 3 years, I've allowed my intuitive field to come more in tune with my clients. And I have a feeling that it's probably the first time I'm going to say this, but I have a feeling that I've taken my scientific mind out of it so that I could connect to my intuition. And it's worked wonders for my clients. However, now I feel like I need to go back to that science base, and that I'm not quite sure where to go forth on. I use a lot of breath work with my clients. I don't know how and what you think of that, or if you integrate that with your clients, to release emotions, perhaps with slight questionings that create that seed that they could go home and ponder with, and then ask their bodies what's going on. So I think my question is more of a statement first, in terms of thank you for, yeah, Allison, totally right. That relief of, okay, it can, get out, and it doesn't have to be that difficult. But my question comes to, how do you integrate all of it together for it to become
the word that comes to me,
like a cohesive kind of
intention.
Right.
And so you're wanting to, you've experienced what it's like to work out of the left brain and out of the right brain. The trick now is to bring them together. And to it's like a permeable membrane that you go from one to the other, one to the other. Because I've seen some therapists that are purely in the intuitive part, and they have no test, retest. There's nothing logical. It's all in what they feel, and it makes for a kind of a passive relationship between the therapist and the client. The client's receiving, and so what's his or her responsibility in all this? And so for me, the magic is in the middle, where you have access to both at all times. But it's intention.
Hallelujah. I love hearing that. That it's not,
Thank you.
the
That
more
was
you know,
awesome.
the better it is, or the more intuitive. It's like the magic is in the middle. I'm writing that down. I'm going to steal that.
Oh, one more question.
Got
here.
notes. I'm just going to, sorry, I muted everybody. Go ahead. Linda, is it?
Diane.
Diane, sorry.
Yeah.
I totally agree with Allison and Sarah. It's like, what a relief to have this space for the intuition part. You're always taught to objectively write down what you see, what you're doing. How do you write that in your physiotherapy? The intuition part, the feeling part. How do you write that down?
In terms of conversations I have with patients?
I mean, well, no, when you're, je vais dire en français, quand tu rédiges ton dossier physio.
Mais ça revient toujours à quelque chose qui est, sorry, I'm switching into French. It comes back to something like that intuition. It basically communicates something that ends up being something that you do or say to your patient. And so that whatever I do or say as a result of that intuition is what I can write down on the chart. And sometimes when it's really more about the conversation that we're having around this pain body and the mind body thing, I'll say in my treatment, talk plus advice given regarding psychosocial component or something like that. I don't go into detail. I just know, or if I refer them out to somebody that can help them, I'll write it dans mon dossier. And so I try and keep my dossier as analytical as possible, so somebody could pick it up and understand what the heck I was doing. I hope that answers your question.
Because oftentimes I feel stuff and I go there. I don't know why, but it's just I have to go there.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, sometimes I find stuff, but when I sit down to write it down, I have a hard time expressing it in writing.
See, so if you had gone there, which is not the area of the pain, is it often in the area of the pain or not?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So if you had gone there to treat and then did your retesting in the area that was problematic, whether it was a testing of mobility or stability, to see if it changed, therein that is your test retest.
Okay.
You understand? So
okay.
What brought you there could have been intuition, and if you and it's a bit like the story I had with Paul. It brought me to his foot for his back pain. I can explain it later once I've had the training with the integrated systems model. but I couldn't explain it at the time. It was just, you know, an intuitive thought.
Mm-hmm.
So you try and bring it back to something that relates to their area of complaint, whether it's a functional thing or a pain thing.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Sarah? Go ahead. Sarah?
So I have another question. How do you manage to work with pain? I have a history of chronic pain that I've been dealing with, and recently it seems like with all this COVID and with recent overworking at a clinic that I've left now, it seems that all the chronic pain is becoming acute, and I've lost my basis, my ground. How do you work? What do you recommend to come back to a stronger stability?
Right. So you're, from what I'm
do you keep on working even though you have pain, or how do you manage that?
So what I'm hearing is that it wasn't a particular event or something that you did to bring on your pain. It was just everything going on around your environment and stress and that kind of thing. So you have to address that part of it and make a concerted effort to do what you can to keep inflammatory levels down, whether that is more meditation, nutrition, getting out there, walking. I mean, I don't know of anybody, no matter what kind of pain they're in, that can't at least walk for short periods of time, and just stay moving. So I think that's interesting, because when I have an injury in my body, I know enough to know when I should rest it and when I should move around it, and then finally move the area of problem. But I know movement is really important. And in the data and the research, it's shown up time and time again that exercise is the answer for a lot of chronic issues. And so I don't have also that whole fear factor of, oh my God, I'm going to be like, crippled from this injury forever. No, I don't have that story. Okay. So it's like, for example, I had an MCL injury and I fell through somebody's floor in October. And yes, I used a cane for a few days, but I started moving as soon as I could, certainly in the plane that wasn't stressing the MCL. And occasionally it bothers me today, but I don't make a big story of it. And I just keep doing my yoga, keep doing whatever. And if I'm in more pain and I'm like, okay, what's my body trying to tell me? And that's when I connect up, what do I need to do, guys? And I'll get an answer. Now it's time to do this, or now it's time to do that, so hard for me to say without evaluating you specifically, but, considering what you're telling me, that there was no specific event related and it seemed to be more stress induced and obviously that's the component that you need to address.
I'm just going to add to that while you were talking and while Doreen was answering. My message was breathing exercises, specific breathing exercises, 5-10, 90-90 supine breathing. And if you want, you can hook up. We can talk about that. And I have breathing experts that I would do that, send you to. I could show you how they've trained me, but if you really want like someone who's got
polyvagal theory thing, Paul.
What's that?
Oh, the whole part of the polyvagal theory.
Yes, exactly.
Parasympathetic nervous system.
And shutting down that limbic response to things, because some of this isn't yours. You just picked it up and you didn't know how to defend yourself.
That is so true. As therapists, we have to really be careful because most of us are empaths, right?
Yeah. And it was insidious too.
Yes, and how much of other people's energies that we pick up and how to protect ourselves. That could be a whole other conversation.
That's a course right there. See, I'm pointing at you. I'm pointing at that part of the
I've had my lessons along those lines, let me tell you.
I'm such a selfish little guy. Sometimes the only reason I feel like the only reason I started these series was to get people to do seminars that I want them to do. But when I read, this is chapter 15 of her book. And, you go through it, and then there's this one part that you sort of lead up to it. fascia in the fifth dimension, which is near the end. Like, hello, it's just like, just get on with it. You're gonna do it. And then you start, and then in the last few pages, you just talk about nothing but spirit and how you attach yourself and how anyone can do it. It's like,
yeah. When I sent that last chapter to Diane Lee, and she's one of my mentors, and I said, so what do you think? And she said, oh, you have a lot of courage, girl. I went, yeah, well, I know. Yeah. I had no choice. I had to do it. So
yeah, you're the conduit for a lot of us.
Yeah.
I hope, So
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So Sarah, you can connect with me on Messenger, and we'll go from
Wonderful.
Okay. Yeah, I want to thank Paul for doing this. This was a kind of interesting experience for me. First time I do this, and I hope we all got something out of it. I know I enjoyed myself. So.
Well, I'm gonna get this edited, like just to have an entry video, an entry sort of like with your images and all that. So it's not a big edit. We won't take anything out, but it'll be the whole thing in its entirety. Or we might just do the questions as an add-on so people don't have to watch the whole thing. But that'll take about 12 hours, literally.
Okay.
And then I'll post it on Facebook and YouTube, and that's enough. Or LinkedIn maybe. So anyone that doesn't see it by this time tomorrow, what day is it today? Oh, it's Thursday. Yeah, if you don't see it or you want
what day is it?
Yeah, well, just write to me, but you've all connected with me to get your link. So let's stay in touch, and I'll keep on doing these with other people. I've got Scott Dartnell coming up, and other people like Brandy Osborne out in the West Coast. So they're fun. We learn a lot. So Doreen, I want to thank you so much for your time and the generosity of your answers and the generosity of their spirit and letting that side out, and whatever the cost was on that. But I think it was worth it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah,
bye.
Okay, bye. I don't know how to.
Paula would be interested in the information you will share with Sarah about yoga.
Yeah, just connect with me, and I'll on Messenger, and then I'll send you the information that I have.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye. Bye, Allison.